The Cult Control is a mid-level BMX bike that costs about $500 and weighs around 25 pounds. In this video, we're going to talk about the Cult Control. I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about it and help you decide if this is a good bike for you or if you need to buy something else. So let's get right into it. First, let's answer some of the most common questions that people have about the Cult Control. Number one is, how much does this bike weigh? On Cult's website, it says it weighs about 25 pounds. They're not super specific like other brands are. Like other brands will say 25.4, 25.9. And so Cult just kind of leaves that open, which leads me to believe that, there's some number fudging there. There might not be. It's probably not exactly 25 pounds, but it's around there, so it's close enough. Can you upgrade the Cult Control? Everything on the bike is fully upgradable and fully customizable. Most of the parts that come on it are half decent quality, but there are some that you might want to upgrade later on once you start riding and once you start progressing. Can you grind with the Cult Control? No, you can't grind with the Cult Control because it doesn't come with any pegs. And grinding on the axles without pegs is like really hard to do. Not many people can do it. So the answer is going to be no. If you want to grind with this bike, you can buy pegs and hub guards separately and put them on the bike. But as it comes right out of the box, you can't grind with the Cult Control. Does the Cult Control have brakes? Yes, the Cult Control has stock brakes with non-removable brake mounts. A lot of street riders like to ride brakeless, and to do that, you've got to take the brakes off. And higher end BMX bikes come with removable brake mounts that unscrew from the frame, so you can have a nice, clean, brakeless look. The Cult Control's brake mounts are welded on there, so if you do take the brakes off, it's not going to look as clean as it would if they were removable. What kind of hub does the Cult Control have? The Cult Control has a basic cassette hub with a 25:9 gear ratio. This gear ratio is very common. You're going to see that on a lot of complete BMX bikes, and all of Cult's BMX bikes have a cassette, so none of them have a free coaster. It's important to understand if the size of this bike is right for your height. My first BMX bike was way too small and I had no idea that that even mattered. So when I was riding it, when I was learning tricks, it was really hard for me to control. Like, it was way too small. I was looping out all the time. It was just a bad experience. And if I would have gotten a bike that was the right size for me, it would have been a lot easier to progress and I would have learned tricks a lot quicker. And so I want you to have that experience. I want you to buy a bike that's the right size. So let's talk about the sizing here. The Cult Control comes with a 20.75 inch top tube. This top tube size is going to be best for riders who are between 5'9" and 6 foot. If you're taller or smaller than that by a few inches, you're going to be fine. But if you're way taller or way smaller, it's best to find the right top tube size so you can easily progress on the bike. All right, I just wanted to pop in real quick while I'm editing this video and say thank you, Unity, for letting me come by and check out these BMX bikes and film some B-roll. It was so good to come in, see them in person, and it makes the video so much better for you guys. So if you're in the Phoenix area and you want a new bike, you want new parts, you need your bike worked on, swing by Unity Ride Shop and check them out. It's honestly one of the best BMX shops that I've been to, and you will not be disappointed. So I just wanted to jump in here, shout them out. Okay, let's get back on with the video. Now, along with the top tube size, the frame has 4 other geometries, and these other geometries are going to affect how the bike handles and how the bike feels. These geometries also impact the park score, the street score, and the dirt score that we're going to talk about later on in the video. But let's explain the geometries of the bike and talk about how it's going to actually feel. The Cult Control comes with a 75-degree head tube angle. The standover height's not listed on their website, but we can assume it's about a 9-inch standover height since that's the most common standover height. It has a 13.65-inch chainstay and an 11.8-inch bottom bracket height. With this geometry, the longer 13.65-inch chainstay is going to give the bike a longer wheelbase, meaning that the back wheel is farther away from the front wheel. What this does is this gives the bike a really stable and controlled feel that's going to feel good when you're going at high speeds. For example, high speeds on dirt jumps or pump tracks. This stability, though, also causes a problem when you're trying to get into manuals. Since it requires a lot more leverage and a lot more weight to get the front wheel up for a smaller rider, it might be hard to get into a manual or even pull up a bunny hop because this is a really long chainstay. The taller bottom bracket height, 11.8, is pretty tall. What this does is this adds some responsiveness to the steering and to the spins for them. So you might be wondering if this bike is a good quality BMX bike, and the answer is yeah, it's pretty good quality BMX bike. It's classified as mid-level quality. It scores a 5.7 out of 10 on my scoring system. And what this means is that the quality, the components the quality of the components on this bike are high enough to withstand to mid-level riding. Let's talk about what those components are and how they score in quality. The Cult Control has a full chromoly frame, forks with a chromoly steer tube and high tensile steel legs. It has full chromoly bars. It has 8-spline 3-piece chromoly cranks, and then it has a double wall rim in the back. If you'll see on Cult's website, they list Cult Match rims. There's Cult Match single wall, there's Cult Match double wall, but the rims on the Control are a double wall in the rear and a single wall in the front. And so with this quality, it's going to score, like I said, a 5.7. And this is a pretty good quality score. The thing here with the forks that you need to be aware of is that high tensile steel legs bend. And so if you're riding the Cult Control at the skate park a lot and you're casing ramps, you're casing your airs, you're doing disasters, you're stretching out those forks, and those fork legs are going to bend out. Aside from that, the single wall rim in the front, like, it does deduct some quality from it, but typically you're not putting a lot of weight and a lot of pressure on that front rim when you're doing tricks, so it's not that big of a deal. Everything else on the bike is pretty good quality and it would withstand to a decent level of riding. So let's talk about some pros and cons of the Cult Control. One of the pros is the fact that this bike is pretty decent quality for a really good price. I think value is one thing that is overlooked a lot in the BMX world. The Cult Control is actually a good value BMX bike. It has some really popular Cult Vans tires included on it, and a lot of people love these tires. They grip well in the street. Now, some of the cons include that single wall front rim. I'm a little bit disappointed by it because I would like to see a double wall front and back if you're going to be spending $500 on a bike. I think the geometry on this bike is a little bit disappointing, just because the chainstay length is way too long, and it's something that just doesn't really make sense here with the bikes. All 4 of Cult's 20-inch BMX bikes have the exact same geometry, and so in my opinion, it wasn't well thought out. Like, they didn't think about this bike and like, okay, let's design the Cult Control to be really good at street riding, or let's design it for this. They're like, okay, here's a geometry, slap it on all the bikes, let's just pump out as many bikes as possible. And I kind of get that vibe from, all of Cult's bikes, because it doesn't seem like they put too much thought into the geometry. But let's talk about how this bike scored for street riding, park riding, and dirt riding. A lot of bikes come out of the box designed for a certain type of riding, so let's see what the Cult Control is best for. The Cult Control scored a 2.19 in street, it scored a 3.21 in park, and it scored a 4 in dirt. Technically, this bike is going to be best for riding dirt jumps or pump tracks, and this is due to that longer chainstay and the more stable geometry on the bike. The bike is not going to be really responsive for park riding. It's not going to be really responsive in the front end for street riding. It doesn't have pegs for street riding. So overall, it's going to be better for dirt riding. Now, with this bike, everything is upgradable, like I said, and you can upgrade this bike to be better for any type of riding that you want, and that's the beauty of it. As it comes out of the box, that's what it scores. But if you want it to be better for street, you can buy certain upgrades, okay, to make it that way. And I put together a free PDF that shows you exactly what upgrades would make the bike better for certain types of riding. The link to that is in the description. Like I said, it's completely free. Now, if you want to upgrade the Cult Control, maybe you've already bought it or you're planning to upgrade it as soon as you get it, I would recommend buying pegs and hub guards if you want to be better at street riding for it. The next upgrade would be a double wall front rim. I think the single wall front rim, like I said, is a little bit disappointing. And the third upgrade for this bike would be full chromoly forks with maybe a steeper offset. You could get some forks with a 15, a 25, or even a 28 millimeter offset that make them a lot more responsive, and you're replacing out those 50% high tensile steel forks. Now, if you're looking at the Cult Control, I think it's important to consider the Kink Switch, the Sunday X, and the Sabrosa Letum. All 3 of those bikes are pretty high quality bikes, similar to the Cult Control or higher quality, and they come at a good price point. Some are designed for different types of riding. And so if you're looking into new bikes, consider those bikes also. Now, there really isn't a good warranty for the Cult Control. On Cult's website, they state that they have a 1-year warranty on the frame against manufactured defects. And I'm gonna assume that this covers the frame on complete bikes, though I'm not 100% sure. And so anyway, if you buy the Cult Control and you have an issue with the frame, theoretically, they're going to help you out with that. And again, double check with Cult before you buy it, because they're not very straightforward on it, and this is not a very good warranty. Now, because of this, it's really important that you buy your bike from a trusted shop who's going to take care of you no matter what. I buy all of my parts and stuff from Dan's Comp. They literally have a number you can call if you have questions about anything, or if you have an issue with your bike. Like, they are there to help you and make sure that you're taken care of. And so that's why I buy my stuff from them. That's why you should buy your complete bikes from them. Trusted, they're going to take care of you. And if you have any issues, they're going to take care of you. So now every year there are slight differences in the BMX bikes. And so if you're wondering what's different about this year versus last year, I talked about it in the review on bmxnerds.com. Just go to that review, scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, and that's where I talk about what's different in 2023 versus 2024, 2024 versus 2025, and so on. Okay, so check that out if you're wondering what the differences are. Honestly, I think the Cult Control is a pretty good bike. Now, I'm disappointed in the single wall front rim and the 50% chromoly forks, but for $500, this is one of the better value BMX bikes that you can get. It's a mid-level bike still, and it's at a good price point. Some bikes with this quality are costing $500, $600, $700. This one's, right at the $500 price point. And so it's cool that you can get this bike for that price, maybe spend a little bit over time to make those upgrades. I think the 20.75 inch top tube is very common for most riders. A lot of riders who are getting into the sport and are a little bit on the taller side are between that 5'9" to 6 foot height, and they would fit well on this bike. So personally, I like the Cult Control. A little disappointed about some of the quality choices, but I think it's a good value bike. The Cult Control was not good enough to make it into the top 11 BMX bikes for this year, but if you want to know what those top 11 BMX bikes are, the video where I break it down is up on the screen right now. Go check that video out next, and we'll see you guys in the next video.